Hello students. Today let's learn about the deflection of PAC beams. So what is the significance of the deflection of PAC beams? The deflection of PAC beams is rather of major significance because of some reasons which are explained in this particular video. So we have a RCC member. We all know that if we replace it with a PSC member, then it would become more slender. And since a pre-stressed concrete member is smaller in depth than an equivalent reinforced concrete member, the deflection of a pre-stressed concrete member tends to be larger. And this is the reason that we take deflection into major consideration while designing a PSC beam. So basically, how do we calculate? So the total deflection in a pre-stressed concrete member is a resultant of the upward deflection due to pre-stressing force and downward deflection due to gravity loads. Or otherwise, it has two components. One, the short-term deflection at transfer, and two, the long-term deflection at service loads. So let's understand short-term deflection at transfer. Short-term deflection at transfer can be calculated by knowing the deflection due to self-weight plus deflection due to imposed load plus deflection due to pre-stressing force. Whereas the long-term deflection at service loads can be calculated by knowing the deflection due to self-weight plus the deflection due to imposed load plus the deflection due to pre-stressing force, and last but not the least, plus the deflection due to creep and shrinkage. Now, the deflection due to dead load and live load can be found out by our structural analysis methods, which we have learned in the previous semesters. So if we have a simply supported beam for different load conditions, then we would get the values of delta to be these. And if we had a cantilever beam with different loads, we would get the delta value to be these. Whereas to find out the deflection due to pre-stressing force is quite a challenge. So let's understand it one by one. Now, if we have a pre-stressing beam with a concentric tendon having an eccentricity E and with the length of the beam being B, using the moment area method, which we all studied in our analysis of determinate structures, we know that the deflection is equal to area into the centroidal distance divided by EI. Now this area is of the bending moment diagram, and hence we need to draw the bending moment diagram or the moment area diagram, which would look like this. And the maximum bending moment is equal to P into E. Now here only half of the portion is considered to find out the deflection for known reasons. And if we calculate the area into centroidal distance of the half of this moment area diagram, then we would get these values, which would sum up to be equal to P L square by 8 EI. And hence, if we have a PSE beam with a concentric tendon with an eccentricity E, then the deflection due to the pre-stressing force would be PEL square divided by 8 EI. Similarly, if we have a parabolic tendon with eccentricity E at the center and 0 at the supports, using the same moment area method and the same formula, we would be drawing the moment area diagram to be like this, wherein again we would take the half portion whose values would look like this, and it would sum up to a value of 5 PEL square divided by 48 EI. Now, what if we have a linear tendon having an eccentricity E at the center and 0 at the supports? Again, from the moment area method, we would draw the moment area diagram and again take the values of area into the centroidal distance of half of the moment area diagram, which would give us a deflection value of PEL square by 12 EI. Now, all these are a regular regular pattern of tendons. Now, what if we have another type of tendon which would be like this? Now, this kind of tendon wherein it is concentric as well as linear, then using the same moment area method, what we would do is we would first draw the moment area diagram and divide it into two parts, part 1 and part 2, for part 1 being the rectangle and part 2 being the triangle. If it is divided so, then it is easy to find out wherein the area and the centroidal distance along with the uh, rectangle and the triangular area, if A is equal to 1 by 3 is considered, then we would get the value of delta to be equal to 11 PEL square divided by 216 EI. Now, what if we have an even more challenging tendon profile, something which look like this, wherein the centroid or the central eccentricity would be equal to E1 and the eccentricity at the supports would be equal to E2. Then we would divide it into two parts, wherein there is a beam with a concentric tendon having an eccentricity E2, and then its moment area diagram is drawn along with a beam which has a parabolic tendon having an eccentricity E1 at the center and 0 at the supports, whose moment area diagram would look like this. Using the same moment area method, again we would consider the rectangle plus parabolic tendons. Then we would get the values of deflection to be equal to these, and it would sum up to a value of PE2 L square by 8 EI plus 5 PE1 L square by 48 EI. Similar to this, but a little different, what if the cable profile looked like this? We have eccentricity E1 at the center, and it is a parabolic tendon along with eccentricity E2 at the edges. Now, this eccentricity E2 is above the neutral axis. So if we had a case like this, it would be solved in similar manner as the previous one, except for a slight difference. That is, we would have a rectangular beam with eccentricity E2. Now this eccentricity E2 is above the neutral axis, and we would have a beam with parabolic tendon whose eccentricity is E1 plus E2 at the center and 0 at the edges, whose moment area diagrams would look like this. Here, the value of moment area diagram or the value of the bending moment for the rectangular beam with eccentricity E2, as in the first case, would be negative when compared to the second case. So if we sum up these two, we would get the deflection to be equal to these values, which would sum up to delta is equal to 5 PE1 L square divided by 48 EI minus PE2 L square divided by 48 EI. Now these were the values of deflection for a pre-AC member, and it is due to the pre-stressing force. Now this sums up the short-term deflection, wherein we could find out the deflection due to dead load, due to live load, and due to pre-stressing force. Now when we come to the long-term deflection, now to find out the deflection in the long term, which takes in the values of creep and shrinkage, there's a formula which is directly given, that is delta IL plus delta IP into PI divided by PF, which is also known as the loss ratio, the whole into 1 plus 5, where delta IL is the deflection due to load, delta IP is the deflection due to pre-stress, PI is the initial pre-stressing force, PF is the final pre-stressing force, and phi is the creep coefficient. Now, all these values of short-term deflection and long-term deflection do have a permissible limit, and this is given by the IS codal provisions, and the permissible deflection can be given into two parts, or it is divided into two parts. That is, the upward deflection should be spanned by 300 or lesser, and the downward deflection should be spanned by 250 or lesser. Now, since we have understood how to calculate the deflection values for various PSE members, let's understand the application of these formulae into various problems in the next video. Until then, thank you very much.